أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. So I think I'm going to have to reduce the revision questions to about 2 unless they're like very quick and easy answers, because I think our revision is taking a long time and then we're not able to cover enough material. So the point is just to remind you a little bit about what we have covered. So we'll try and do that in little bits, inshallah. So last time, if you remember, I asked you about the Hilf al-Fudul, and we got some information about the Hilf al-Fudul. So I'm just going to quickly give you some points about it, and you can just write them down and remember them, or you can read up about it, inshallah, in detail. So does anybody remember what the Hilf al-Fudul was? Just some basic information?
Merchant from Yemen who
yes.
He was selling some goods.
Yes.
He was not paid his
yes.
immediately, so this was...
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So this is basically a pact or a treaty that they sort of signed or agreed on, which was to protect the rights of people who are outside of Mecca. Because remember, we said that you need some kind of tribal backing to be able to get your rights. And if you don't have any tribal backing, then people can just walk all over you. So they're trying to do this to prevent that from happening. Because obviously their reputation is at stake. Juwairia, can you turn around and sit over there? Okay, so the Hilf al-Fudul has also got another name. It is called al-Hilf al-Mutayyibin, and I will tell you why it's called that. When this took place, the Prophet ﷺ was in his early 20s, and some narrations state that he was exactly 20 years old. So this is much before his prophethood. He was a young man at the time. And it occurred in the month of Dhul Qa'dah. Obviously this man, he had come with his trade, with his, things that he wants to sell. He has come for Hajj. So that's when, he came with his things to sell them. So this is the time that this took place. So it happened in the month of Dhul Qa'dah. He was from the tribe of Zubayd, which is a tribe in Yemen. So he's not got really anything to do with Makkah directly. And like I said, he came to Makkah for Hajj. And in those days, they would bring their business or their trade along so that they can do Hajj and they can try and sell some of their trade goods. And does anybody know who he sold this item to? It's a very well-known person. Yes, Al-As bin Wa'il, who is the father of Amr ibn Al-As. And As bin Wa'il, he was a chieftain, he was a statesman, he was a businessman, he had position and status in Makkah. So if he does some hanky-panky, it's not easy to confront him because he is a big shot. Okay, so it's not easy to just approach him and say, how dare you do this, and give the guy his money. So it's not like he's not some average Joe. He's a top guy over there. So that's why it became even more complicated. And this man, he did go to different tribes and ask them that, this has happened with me, can anybody help me? And nobody was really able to help him because of the status of Al-As bin Wa'il. So they were all reluctant to approach him or, ask him because he has this, reputation or position in society. And then what did he do to announce his problem? In those days, there was, so exactly. Poems or poetry was their version of Twitter, okay? So they would write a poem. And I mean, for us, right, we have to go to school, we have to study how to write a poem, and we have to go through all this level of instruction. For them, it was like linguistics was their speciality, right? And that's why the Quran is their miracle. And so they would just come up with poems just like that, So he stood near the Kaaba and he read out this poem that he's written. Basically, he's saying, if I was to summarize that poem, which he obviously read out in Arabic, is he's basically saying, you guys are a bunch of cheats and liars. And this is like very insulting and embarrassing for the Meccans, They're thinking that, oh my God, he's just gone and insulted us. And obviously at that time there are other people who have come from outside as well, because it's Hajj season. So this is something that they can't tolerate, that they're being insulted in front of half the globe here. So then they convene in the house of, does anybody know in whose house they met? Again, a very important name for you to remember, Abdullah ibn Jud'an. Okay, he's a distant uncle of Aisha radiallahu anha, but he's an important person. His name will pop up a few times. He was very kind and soft-hearted, and he had a very helpful nature. You have such people in your community where you'll have these one or two people who are always willing to help and always, want to sort people's problems out. So he was this kind of person. So they thought it's appropriate to have this meeting in his house, and so they all met in his house. He was also an elder, apart from being an Aunt Alice type of person, but he was also an elder. So they all met in his house, and they signed this treaty. And they said that basically, in that treaty, they said that they will take the side of the oppressed against the oppressor, regardless of his tribe or background. So basically, they're saying, even if you're a nobody, but if you are oppressed, we will try and get you your right, even if the oppressor is a big guy and you're not. So this is basically what they're saying. And now, obviously, in those days, the majority of people, especially amongst the Arabs, they're illiterate. Okay, it was not uncommon for illiteracy to be prevalent in their time. So that's why, for example, the Romans, the Persians, they never really even thought the Arabs were a force to reckon with, because they thought, who are these? These are just like these nomads who just live in the desert. They don't have a civilization. They don't have a script. They don't have, they basically did not really have anything, and most of them did not know how to read and write. So when they have to sign this treaty, they would dip their hand in some perfume and they would rub it on the wall of the Kaaba. And that is like they're signifying that we've all committed ourselves to this treaty, and that's one of the reasons why it was known as Hilf al-Mutayyibin, because they did that with perfume. And in times of war, or when they would have disputes, what would they dip their hand in? Blood. Yeah, blood. So they would dip their hand in blood, and that was to show, that we're ready to fight and we're ready to give our blood. So, there's no literacy in these people, so this is how they would express themselves. The word fudul, when you hear it, if you know the meaning of fudul, it basically means sort of like none of your business, So this is the hilf of none of your business, or it's not your business. The reason is because obviously when Al-As found out that this is going on, he was very angry. And he said that, what has this got to do with any of you, This is between me and this man. Why have you all got involved and, you've signed this pact? And so that's why it was known as Hilf al-Fudul. It is the contract of something which is not really their concern or their business, but they have made it their business. And it was also known as Hilf al-Mutayyibin. And something like this was never heard of before. This is the first time that something like this took place. And like I said to you, the Prophet ﷺ, he participated in this because his uncles took him to the house of Abdullah bin Jud'an when this treaty was being signed. And it shows that even at that age, his uncle obviously thought that this is something that Muhammad ﷺ should participate in, and that he is intelligent and intellectual enough to offer his suggestions or whatever he has to say about this meeting and this treaty. So that means that he was not just, usually you look at 19, 20-year-old youth as being silly and playful and not really, knowing what they're doing. But in his case, he had that status and that reputation where they said, okay, let's take him as well. I mean, mostly if we're having a meeting, very few of us are going to bring a 20-year-old into the meeting. We're going to think, okay, it's because this meeting it involves mainly elders, who are in their 40s, 50s, and plus. So that is one thing that it shows. And the other thing is that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that he would not forego participating in a treaty like this, even for, I think the hadith said, 20 camels or 20 red-haired, some type of animal or something like this. Basically, he's saying, a good herd of animals, I would exchange that to be able to participate in this treaty, because that's how much importance he's giving it. And this shows us that we don't only get involved in things which are connected with Islam or with Deen, but we also participate in things which have to do with the rights of people or the rights of animals or anything which is haqq, anything which is good, anything which is upright. As Muslims, we should have a share in it, we should have a say in it, and we should participate in it. We don't just have to participate in things which are connected or related to Deen, but even things which are not, which are related to community, society, things like that. So we should have a say in it, and that is something noble to take part in, especially when it has to do with defending someone or helping somebody out.
What about Go Green, Sister Fakhra? Because there's nothing here for us to follow in Saudi Arabia. The Go Green movement. How do we?
I've seen now recently. I've seen in some areas they've got 2 bins in most places. Yeah, so I think they are gradually trying to bring that out everywhere else. So it's come near where I live, but it hasn't come to our area yet. But I think gradually it is coming. So some of these things you just have to. What's the word?
Advocate?
Yes, advocate. I'm trying to think of the.
But what do we have a substitute?
I can't remember the word now. But where everybody gets together and they like. Not really. I can't remember the word that I want to say. But yeah, you just want to have some kind of an initiative and movement where you make the government aware that we have this situation or this problem, and we suggest.
We had in Darbekar.
Oh, really?
The Tabak al-Khairi was fully Go Green.
Oh,
So they
okay.
used only paper bags,
Okay.
and the bins was also
Yeah.
for recycling.
Yeah. The thing is, you see things happen with small steps. You can't just expect something big to suddenly happen. Like even with the boycott, remember? It started with one man. Then he went and he spoke to another man. Then he spoke to a third man. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. And that's how you start lobbying. That's the word I was thinking of. Yeah, you have to lobby, and you have to bring these things to people's attention to try and do something about it. Like, for example, in the UK, we have this thing that if they put up a billboard, and they put up very unacceptable billboards around the city, if I think there's a limit of number of people, I think it's 180 or 200 people. If 200 people complain about it, they have to bring that billboard down. They don't have a choice. So you see, if everybody's just going to keep quiet and think, what's the point? It's just going to be me and maybe 10 other people. Then nothing is going to happen. And similarly, we had a sister here. I don't know if any of you have heard her name, but she's American revert sister. Her name is Aisha Hajjar. And for years and years, she was trying to lobby. She's a doula and a midwife. Now she became a midwife as well. But she was trying to encourage hospitals to encourage natural birth and reduce the number of C-sections and episiotomies, and she was trying to encourage them to have trained midwives who know how to deliver babies to try and reduce the chances of episiotomies, etc. And when she was doing this is like going back maybe 7-8 years back, okay? I used to think, Miskina, I wish she knew how things run in this country, You can say what you want, but, there's only 1 or 2 people who call the shots. And if they don't say yes, you can lobby as much as you want, nothing's going to happen. And then, mashallah, she really, really, really worked hard. She really tried hard. And now, in Kingdom Hospital, I went and I saw the department myself with my own eyes. And I wish I was going to have more babies. But basically, now they have actually got this facility where they let you birth in any position, they let you do what you want to do, they don't force you to do anything, they don't interfere if you want to be left alone. Of course, there are people who want interference, that's up to them. But the people who don't want and they want completely natural this and that, they allow them to do that. And this is, they said to me, this is all Aisha's, efforts. And I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe she actually managed to do this. And she was one person. She did not even have like hundreds of people with her. She was literally one person. She was going from city to city, doing seminars, doing this, doing that. And mashallah, finally, I couldn't even believe she managed to make changes to that level. So, changes can happen, changes will happen. But you have to have the determination. You have to believe in the thing that you want. If you don't believe in it, or you are like a bit shaky yourself, then you can't convince other people. So you have to be convinced yourself that this is something we really need in our community or in our society, and then you should go forward with it. And inshallah, dua and with Allah's help and barakah, changes can happen. But yeah, okay. So. So for today's question, I was going to say to you, because we've gone on too long now, we were talking about the Kaaba, if you remember, last time, and the changes in the Kaaba when it was here. Again, I'll give you some more details about the Kaaba next time, but today I just wanted to ask you, what happened when they came to the part where they had to replace the black stone into the Kaaba? They got into an argument. What was the argument about? Yes, that who is going to place that black stone, because this is something, this is the most honorable part of constructing the Kaaba. So everybody wants that honor, and every tribe wants that honor. So they said, they fell into a huge dispute. They came to the point where they were dipping their hands in blood, and they said, okay, we'll fight this out. So they would become, serious very quickly about issues like this. Okay. So then what happens? So somebody suggests that...
The next day, who will enter the
Kaaba? Yes, that's right. So they said whoever enters, the first person we see enter, he will replace the black stone. Who is it that enters? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he comes and how does he make them reconcile on this? Yes. So he took his cloak and he put the stone in the cloak, and he said all the tribes, the main tribes, will hold the cloak, and he with his blessed hands replaces the black stone into the Kaaba. And everybody's happy with that because they had so much love and respect and honor for him. And this is before prophethood. Yeah. After that, it was a different story. So now, some of the things that are symbolic in this reconstruction of the Kaaba, just 2-3 things that I will just quickly tell you. No time to go into too much detail, unfortunately. With the breaking of the Kaaba and the reconstruction of the Kaaba, it's sort of symbolic that Ibrahim alayhi salam's teachings used to be something, and then they were all taken away, or they all got lost. And then you had a new set of teachings which are going to come now with the Prophet ﷺ's coming. And also you see that the tribes are all divided, and the Prophet ﷺ symbolically will reunite all the tribes under one banner, and that is going to be the banner of Islam. I mean, these are all things which are going to happen, but you see some symbolism in what is happening currently with the Kaaba. And also you see that at the time that this incident took place, the Prophet ﷺ was 35. So this is literally a few years before prophethood. And you can see how his character was established in the community. And people trusted him, people loved him, people honored him, people, knew that if he makes a decision, this must be the right decision. And Abu Talib had even noticed, wherever the Prophet ﷺ would go, they would have success. Whenever he wouldn't be there, they would have failure. So he had noticed these things about him. Anyway, so again from this we learn that, before we start doing dawah or before we start lobbying for something or doing something, we should try and make an effort to at least establish some level of reputation for ourselves in the community so that people can trust what you're saying. So if you are a nobody or you have been involved in, inappropriate dealings or things like that, and then you come now all of a sudden and you say, oh, I've got this proposal or, I've got this idea, nobody's really going to want to listen to you because they know that you're a cheat or you're a liar or you're a this or a that. So, it's important that we do participate in our communities, in the needs of our society, even if they are not deen-related needs, so that tomorrow when we get up and we say that we want to tell you about Islam, people are ready to listen because they think this individual, he's always been there, when we were raising money for such and such cancer patient, or when we were trying to construct that well, or when we were doing such and such thing. This person was always there in the forefront trying to help, trying to assist. So today, when you bring the message of Islam, you have more you could say credibility to be accepted and believed because they know that this person is an active member of our society. They're always helping, they're always trying to do something. So this is important. We should not be inactive members of our community and think, okay, just my prayer rug and my fasting and my tahajjud and my Quran, and it's just me, my ibadah and myself and my family. Because then tomorrow when you get up and go and say, okay guys, I want to tell you about Islam, they're going to say, who are you? Where were you when we were doing X, Y, Z? So always be active, always participate, always try to bring benefit to the people around you so that tomorrow, it makes your job of dawah smoother and easier, and inshallah, that's what we want. Ultimately, we want you to be able to establish La ilaha illallah in the earth and, do it with ease and, so that people can accept it, inshallah. Okay. So the rest of the questions we will do next time because there is no time for it today. All right. Now, we stopped last time. We finished the story of Taif and we talked about how the Prophet ﷺ got back into Mecca. Who sponsored him? Mut'im ibn Udayyah. And the situation is still it's very difficult and very complex, but he is in Mecca now, back in Mecca, and he has just been through a very traumatic experience. So, a long hadith in Bukhari. Again, with the Isra, like it is with everything else, you have a lot of facts and you're trying to chronologically place them in order. So if you see, I think there are more ahadith about Isra than there are about the Meccan period. There are so many narrations and so many, So I'm trying to piece some of these things together. So I can't really say that everything is in one hadith. So I will read out one hadith, but I will add a few things from here and there to sort of to be able to give you as full a picture as possible. So don't think that I never read a hadith which had all these things in it, because there is no such hadith. But I've tried to sort of make a collage and just to make it easier for us to study it. Okay. So some things I don't know whether this happened first or that happened first, but we'll mention them, and Allah knows best, when exactly they happen, but at least to give us an idea. Okay. So after an all-time low, the Prophet ﷺ is gifted with this all-time high. And this is like a personal gift for the Prophet ﷺ, that he gets to go on this journey. So he brings a lot of benefit and he brings us something from it, but the pleasures that he experiences are for him, right? This is something specially for him. He can tell us about those things, but we can't really share in those pleasures as such. Inshallah, one day maybe we will also get to go on this journey. Okay. So now the first point of dispute amongst a lot of people is when Isra wal Miraj took place. Okay, and I think people even celebrated right? They have some specific date, which is really interesting.
7th of Rajab.
Okay, you see? So the scholars don't know when it happened, but people know when to celebrate it. Okay, so before we talk about the date, because that is unknown, let's talk about the year. I mean, we're trying to even figure out when exactly it happened. So, now, Aisha radiallahu anha said something very interesting. She said that I want to tell you the exact words so that I don't give out the answer. Yeah. I think she said something like that Salah did not become fard except after the death of Khadija. Okay? So, when do you think Isra wal Miraj took place? After the death of Khadija. When did Khadija radiallahu anha pass away? How old was the Prophet ﷺ approximately? 50. Yes, he was 50, right? And remember we said that for the first maybe 2 or 3 years he did not remarry, and then after that he marries Sauda. Okay. So it is definite that Isra did not happen before that, because remember when we talked about the death of Khadija radiallahu anha, we said that there was no Salatul Janaza, so they just buried her and he just made dua and he came back. So there is no Salah until then. Now, so it seems, and you know that the Meccan period is how long? 13 years. So he's only in Makkah until about the age of 53. And then he spends the rest of his next 10 years in Medina. And this has happened when he's still in Makkah. So it seems like it happened a year or so before Hijrah. Okay? So it's after the death of Khadija radiallahu anha, but before the Hijrah, which just gives you a small window of like 2 or 3 years, right? So some people have said some really off things, but Allahu Alam, but it seems most likely that it has happened a year or year and a half before Hijrah, okay? So we just know the year. We don't really know exactly which month and which date is unknown. So people who are celebrating these things, this is obviously from some unknown source. Okay. What does Isra mean?
Night.
Yes. It means the night journey, or traveling by night, or traveling in the night. What does Mi'raj mean? Yes, it means going up, or the mechanism of going up or rising, okay? So, there are 2 parts to this journey. The first part is the Isra, which is when he goes from Makkah, from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. And then the Mi'raj is when he goes from Aqsa up to the heavens, okay? So there are 2 parts to this journey. Okay, and this incident is referenced in the Quran, in Suratul Isra, but it's just the first ayah, and also in Suratul Najm, where Allah talks about the Sidratul Muntaha and him seeing the angel. Okay. Okay, where did it happen from? So, because Allah states in the Quran that, he takes his slave from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa, so we know that the journey starts in Masjid al-Haram. Now, there are 2 narrations. One says that he was sleeping in al-Hatim, which is the more popular one, and one says that he was sleeping in his house. You might think, he has a house in Makkah, why is he sleeping in the Hatim? So some scholars have tried to reconcile that, and they said he was sleeping in his house and Jibreel woke him up and he brought him to the Hatim to pray 2 rakahs, and then he starts his journey. Hatim is the semicircular portion next to the Kaaba. So it's also known as Al-Hijr, it's known as Al-Hatim. But the narration in Bukhari says that the Prophet ﷺ starts by saying that I think he says I was sleeping in the hatim. Let me just check.
Yeah, sleeping in that.
Yeah, he says that, I think. My eyes are really bad. And the iPad is broken, so I have to depend on this. Okay. So he says, while I was in Al-Hatim or Al-Hijr, I received a visitor, an angel, who came and opened my abdomen. Okay. So I will would you like me to read the whole hadith and then explain it, or shall I explain it as I go along? Because it's a very long hadith. I think it's better I explain it as I go along. And then you can always go back and go on Google and say Sahih Bukhari Hadith of Isra wal Mi'raj, and the whole thing will come up and you can read it, inshallah, okay? Or one of you can maybe post it on your group or something, inshallah. All right. But it's better I explain as we go along. Okay. So he says that I was in the Hatim and this angel came, and as soon as the angel comes, he opens up his chest. And they gave two descriptions of this opening of the chest, or this heart surgery that the Prophet ﷺ went through. They said it was from the throat to the pubic area. And another explanation is it's from the throat to the abdomen, sort of the chest area. Okay. Now, when is the first time he had his chest opened? Yes, when he was a small child. And the angel, what did the angel do? Yes. The main thing that I want you to remember is in that time, he removed a black piece. And he said, this was your portion of shaitan. And he took that out. Okay, and he put his heart back. This time, the angel comes, he takes his heart out, and he says there was a gold basin, like a bowl made of gold, which was filled with iman. And my heart was put into that and filled with iman, and it was placed back into my chest. So the angel does not remove anything because that's already been taken out. Why do you think that his heart is filled with iman and returned back to his chest? And this is the Prophet ﷺ whose iman we can't even imagine the level of his iman. Why do you think?
To comprehend.
Yeah,
Believe the journey.
Yes.
Because he was in the sleep, so.
No.
Understand.
But I will explain what Rabina is saying. So, what he is about to experience is something exceptional and not something that a normal human being can like take, just like that. Yeah, it's not something simple and something small. He's going to experience something really big, and you need some solid iman to be able to go through this journey and to see all those sights and to come back and be absolutely normal. Okay, which is what happens to him. He comes back and he's like everything is
gasoline. Like pumping the gasoline for his
Yes. So do you know why we cannot see Allah in this life?
Because we don't have enough.
We don't know who.
What do you think would happen if you saw Allah?
go crazy.
We can't.
You won't even be able to sustain it for a split second. It is too much and too grand and too majestic for our weak souls and our weak bodies.
Even the Musa alayhi salam,
And Musa alayhi salam is known to be so tough. Remember? He was able to pull the weight of 2 camel loads. What 2 camels were pulling, when the camels went away, he just pulled it with one arm, right? That's his strength.
In Janaduria, I saw there's a reenactment of that camel, 2 camels. And believe me, I said, this is what he did. We can't even pull it. 2 big camels that were trained to pull up that from the well. I said,
Exactly. And
it was really nice.
Iman and strength are very closely related, and I'll give you a few examples. But in the Akhirah, will we be what we are right now? No, we will be given new bodies. Remember, sisters, you are stuck with the soul, but Allah will replace your body. Okay, so when you are resurrected on the Day of Judgment, you will find yourself in the same state in which you left the dunya. Your soul is not going to be replaced or changed or improved, nothing. It's the way you went, that's the way you will find yourself. That's why we really, really need to work more on our soul than anything else. Our bodies, which we spend so much time and effort with, Allah will give us better bodies, inshallah. Allah will replace that for us, right? And Allah will give us a body and, a kind of creation that can now look at Him, that can go, look at the pleasures of Jannah, that can enjoy that aspect of our existence. But in this state that we are in right now, we don't stand a chance. Going back to Iman and strength, I hear a lot of people saying, I feel really weak, I feel really tired, my vitamin D is low, I need to have my blood tested, and these things are all very well. But do you know the Sahaba? Has anybody seen some of their swords in any museums or in pictures? Okay. Right. Now, I think we'd need maybe about 3 or 4 of us to just lift it. Not move it, just to hold it, just to get it off the ground, right? These are like solid iron weapons, okay? Forget about swinging it around. I mean, that's another story, right? You're thinking, they were swinging these around? Khalid ibn al-Walid said, I broke 8 of these on the day of Mu'ta. And he said the 9th one survived. We can't carry it. Swinging is out of the question. Breaking it. What were these people eating? Was their vitamin D really high? Do you know that for 2 months on end, the fire did not light up in their house. They did not have hot food. They would suck on date stones because the date is finished. So maybe just by sucking on the stone, you feel like you're getting some sweetness, some nutrition. They did not have food. They were very poor. They did not have clothes. They had the strength of elephants. It boggles your mind. We think that if you eat, that's how you will get strength, right? No. I think that we're making ourselves sick from what we are eating. We're actually doing that. We're actually killing ourselves with our food. You will get strength from dhikr. The more dhikr you do, the closer you are to Allah. The more you work on your relationship with Allah, I'm telling you, you will be solid. Nobody can knock you out. You won't be tired, you won't feel fatigue. You will be able to, stand up against the world, stand up against a lot of challenges that come your way. You need to increase in your dhikr, you need to increase in your closeness and nearness to Allah. That is what is going to give you strength. We think that it's the steak and it's the meat and we're not eating enough eggs. And the Prophet ﷺ, he, out of the 3 blessings of this world, he was granted 2 and he was not given 1. Do you know what they are? So he was granted perfume and he was granted women, but he was not granted food. That's one thing that he did not get. And that's a pleasure. That's something that we all enjoy. Who doesn't enjoy their food? Who doesn't enjoy a good hot meal? Can you imagine Aisha radiallahu anha saying that for 2 months, she said, we would not light the fire and we would have al-aswadain. You know what al-aswadain is? Water and dates. That's what they would eat. Can you imagine us eating water and dates? We'd be sitting like that. When our husband comes home, there's the dates. We won't even have the strength to get up because our iman is so weak. We're trying to make up for it, thinking that, if I eat enough, They hardly had anything, and look at their strength. Look at them in the battlefield. In Badr, right? I know the angels came down to help them, but still, they had that one-on-one combat, inshallah, which we will come to. Imagine Ramadan, walking that distance, and then fighting on top of that. This shows us that our focus is all messed up and all in the wrong place. We're not focusing in the right place. That's why we can't understand why we're down, why we're weak, why we're tired, and we're trying to find the solutions in all the wrong places. Okay. So, so the Prophet ﷺ's heart is put into this basin or this bowl. Some narrations state that it was filled with Zamzam, and some narrations state that it was filled with Iman, and it is washed with that and replaced, and his chest is sealed. Okay. Even just to go through that, I think you need a lot of Iman, right? to see this angel who's like opening up your chest and doing all this. I mean, all these things, they need a lot of strength, a lot of like, willpower and just basic strength of accepting what is happening. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so, and then my heart was placed in a golden basin filled with faith, and my heart was placed in it and washed and then replaced. And then I was presented an animal, smaller than a mule and larger than a donkey. Yeah. I think different narrations say slightly different things, but yeah. Everybody knows what a mule is, right? Have you all seen a mule?
Between donkey and horse.
Yeah, so it's not a very big animal, and it's sort of like it's a smallish animal, but it's not very small. Okay, so this animal was larger than a mule, but smaller than a donkey. Okay, you've all seen a donkey, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and there's donkeys here. I was surprised, we went to this, have you heard of this island called Farasan? It's near Jizan. It belongs to Saudi Arabia, but it's you have to sit in a ferry and go across, and it's untouched. And we saw lots of donkeys over there, which is really strange, but yeah. So there are donkeys here, but anyway. Okay, so in one of the narrations, a student asked that, is this animal al-burraq? And he replied, yes. So this animal's name is al-burraq, which also comes from the root word barq, which is lightning. Okay. Now, he doesn't have this name for no reason. He has it for a reason. Okay. When the Prophet ﷺ tried to get onto this burraq, he... like when you try to get onto a new animal and he doesn't know you and you don't know him, and he like jolts a little, right? He like does a bit of a trot like that, right? So he does something like that, and Jibril alayhi salam, he reprimands him, and he said that, alam tastahi, are you not ashamed to do this? He says that nobody has ridden you before who is as noble as your current rider. So, he's like telling him off that, why are you behaving like this? This is one of your most noble passengers, right? Which means that there are other people who have probably ridden Al-Burraq, but we don't know who, we don't know about this creation. And this, just like a few stories like this show us that we don't know anything. We don't know what Allah has created, what is around, where it is. We have no idea. Here we are thinking, we're so full of ourselves, because we invented the iPhone and we think, yeah, man, we got internet, we got this, we don't know anything. Really, we have no idea. Okay. So, this animal would take a stride. Juwairia, do you want to sit on this side? Okay, sit near that chair. This animal would take a stride as far as it can see. So wherever it's standing, its first step goes to where its eye can see. So you can imagine he's basically sort of wrapping the globe around his feet. He has a very, very, that's why he's called Al-Burraq, perhaps, It has the meaning of lightning, but you can see that this animal is riding like lightning, he's so fast. Right? Okay. So, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's trying to describe the speed of this animal. That's why he's saying that his stride was as far as he could see. And he said that this animal would place its hooves at the extent of its sight with one leap. So this is like a really fast, and you can imagine how far his one leap goes. So it's an extremely fast beast. And Jibreel told me to mount this animal, and then he would guide me. And then there are some narrations which say that he went through Medina, and Jibreel told him to get off there and pray 2 rakahs, and he said that this would be an important place in the future, or something to that extent. But I'll just continue with the hadith that I have. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in another hadith that Jibreel took me to Jerusalem, and he gets off the buraq, and he said, I tied my mount at the gate of the masjid, and then I entered and prayed 2 rakah. And he says that I tied my mount to the post that was where the other prophets used to tie their mounts. So apparently there was a sort of like the imam's parking. Okay. So there was a set place for the imams of the masjid, or the prophets, or the anbiya, and that's where they would tie their animal, and then they would go in, right? Maybe that's where they get the imam's parking place from. All right. And a historical point for you all to know that at the time that the Prophet ﷺ went there, there was no Masjid al-Aqsa there. It was a dump. It was like a trash dump. Did you all know that? Yes. Okay. So there was no masjid there. The masjid was constructed later on. Okay. So basically the Christians, they've always been anti-Semitic. Okay. So they've always hated the Jews and anything to do with Judaism. And so they were in charge of Jerusalem at that time, right? It was part of the Roman Empire. And the Roman emperor, he does not want this place to be really beautiful and honorable and majestic or anything. So he deliberately made it into a dump. So people are basically throwing their trash over there. Basically, that's what it is. There's nothing there. It's just a dump. But when the Prophet ﷺ lands there, he sees Masjid al-Aqsa. He sees, like he said, I tied my animal to the post that was for the Prophet. So he is seeing something that other people around him cannot see. Okay, so what other people are seeing is a dump, but he sees this is, a grand masjid and all that. So that's why he ties his animal and he goes inside and he prays 2 rakahs. Because if it was just trash, he wouldn't do that, right? So he can see something which people around him would not have seen at that time. And then he said he went in, and it says that he was an imam, and the people who were following him were the anbiya. Anybody know how many anbiya were sent? 25 are the names that we know. How many were sent? Okay, let me make the question easier. How many rusul were sent?
1.24 lakhs.
So that is the number of anbiya. How many of them were rusul?
1,000.
It's a very famous number, and you can memorize this number because this number keeps popping up for some reason. Allah knows best what the secret is about this number. No? No? Yeah, they are, well, it's... but Rasul are not just people who brought books, but they brought a new message. You could say they revived a new message, right? When it's completely... That's why...
300.
Yeah, so it's 313 or 314. And who else was 313 or 314? Badr. And who else was 313 or 300? Yeah, but other than that? Dawood and Jalut. When he goes, most of them, they get left behind because they all drink the water. And there's only 313 who actually go with him and fight. So this number is very important. Allahu alam what the significance is, but maybe on the Day of Judgment we'll find out. But okay, so you can imagine how many prophets, all the so all the Anbiya and Rusul are praying behind him. And there are different narrations that say, some say that he prayed and he turned around and he saw that so many people are behind him. Some say that he knew and he led them in salah. Allahu alam, what is the correct? Yes. All of the Anbiya, yes. So you can imagine the saf, right? It's something like that, about that much. I think I know it's 120, but maybe it's a bit more than that. Allahu alam. I mean, these are obviously, like we're trying to, 120,000. Okay. Okay, so then now after the salah is finished, Jibreel alayhi salam presents him with milk and wine. Some narrations say water, milk and wine. Some narrations say when he started ascending, he was presented with milk and wine. Allah knows best when exactly, but somewhere around this time, he's presented with milk and wine. And Jibreel tells him, choose for your ummah. So what does the Prophet ﷺ choose? He chose milk. Now, if we look at the difference between milk and by the way, khamr at that time was not prohibited. It was allowed. So you can't say that, he didn't choose it because it's haram. It was not haram at that time. He could have chosen khamr and he could have chosen milk. They were both halal drinks at the time he's presented this choice. Okay, I forgot to mention one other detail. He mentions in some of the narrations that he turns around after he has prayed and he notices that Musa alayhi salam is praying, and he describes him, and he says that Musa was praying and he was tall and strong and a muscular man, and he was brownish in color. He was everybody knows that he had a tanned color, tanned complexion. And do you know why why his tongue was yes, because he was given coal by Firaun to test him. Okay. And he said, as if he is a man from the tribe of Shami'a. And Allahu alam what this tribe is. I'm not aware of this. And then he said he saw Isa alayhi salam praying, and he said that the one who looks the most like him was Urwa ibn Mas'ud al-Thaqafi. Now he's describing the appearance of some of the Anbiya, and he's trying to liken them to some of the Sahaba who are around him. So we don't know what Urwa looks like, but the people at his time, now they can get an idea of what Isa alayhi salam looks like, because he's resembling him to somebody who's amongst them. But basically he had a reddish, or he was a fair complexioned man, and he was Caucasian looking. Okay?
Isa was Caucasian.
Yeah, from his description. Yeah, it seems like that he had a reddish. You see, the Arabs, they would call fair people red. Okay? Like we call some people like pale. Yeah, he was red. Even the Prophet ﷺ's complexion, it was, I won't say he was white, he was red, reddish, yeah. So sometimes I think when you're light skinned and you're not like a pale white, like you'll see some people, they are so white, it's like they have no color, they're really white, But then there are some people who are they have like some redness, some like color in their face, but they're light skinned. You can't say that they are tanned, they're not brown. They are light, but their whiteness is like reddish. Okay, so he seems to say that he's Caucasian looking. Now, Caucasian looking does not necessarily mean it does mean European, but it doesn't necessarily mean blonde hair and blue eyes. Caucasian are like features, like sharp nose, thin lips. These are like very, very typical Caucasian features. Incidentally, my ancestors are from the area of Caucasus. And Caucasus is where the word Caucasian comes from. So people from that area, they have these certain features which are very typical of, that area is called Caucasus. And, that's the kind of appearance they have. So a lot of them, they have dark hair and they might have dark eyes, but it's their facial features which are like that. They don't have flat noses, they have sharp noses, they have thin lips, and they have, this kind of face. Okay, so that's Caucasian looking. And his hair glistened as if he's just come out of water. And he was short in height. He was not as tall as Musa alayhi salam. And then he said, and that they're all standing and praying. Okay. And then I saw Ibrahim alayhi salam standing and praying. And the one who resembles him the most is? Who resembles Ibrahim alayhi salam the most? Yes, he said the one who resembles him the most. Okay, right, the best time, one of the best times to make dua is between adhan and iqamah. So inshallah, try to catch that time whenever you can. Okay. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Coming back to where we were. So he said that the one who resembles Ibrahim alayhi salam the most is your companion, referring to himself. And he said, I could not see anyone resembling myself more than Ibrahim alayhi salam, and I could not see anyone resembling Ibrahim alayhi salam more than myself. So he's saying that we're like mirror images of each other. We look so similar to each other. And before, the Prophet ﷺ leads them in salah, he sees that they're all standing and praying. And you remember when Ibrahim alayhi salam is thrown into the fire, what do they find him doing? He's praying. Now these prophets and these anbiya, they are all in a state of what? Barzakh, right? They're not alive. They've all passed away. So they're in the realm of barzakh right now. They're not in dunya and they're not in akhirah. They're in that state in the middle, right? And in barzakh, they're all praying. And the Prophet ﷺ, he passes by Musa alayhi salam 3 times. And I think all 3 times he sees him praying. And this shows you the importance of salah and what salah actually gives you. Nothing else brings you that kind of satisfaction or pleasure that salah brings you. And like I said to you last time, if your salah is not bringing you satisfaction and pleasure, and it's not the coolness of your eyes, and it's not the thing that you wait for and look forward to, then you need to stop and ask yourself that, what am I doing wrong? Because the problem is not with the salah, it's with you. The salah is sent down to relax you, to be the coolness of your eyes. And if you're not finding that satisfaction in salah, if you're still, your heart is still not at ease, you're still not, it still doesn't solve your problems in the sense of, emotionally bringing you at ease and comfort, then you need to ask yourself that, what am I not doing right in my salah? You need to improve your salah. You need to change your salah so that it does become the coolness of your eyes, and it does become the one and only thing that you really look forward to throughout your day, is to, stand and meet Allah and talk to Allah. When I say meet Allah, obviously, without, seeing Him, but to know that you're standing in front of Allah and talking to Him. So this is what all these prophets are doing. And the fact that the Prophet ﷺ is the Imam of all these prophets, it shows the honor and the status that our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has been given over and above all the other Anbiya. And all the Anbiya, they are very special people to Allah. Allah selected them, Allah picked them, Allah chose them, right? But from all of those picked and selected people, this is the best of all of them, This is you could say, he's the best of all of them. Okay. And he is, because he is leading all the Anbiya in Salah, that indicates that he is the leader of all the who came before us. Because if he's the leader of the Ummah's leader, that means he's the leader of those of all those people. So you can see he's like sort of like the ultimate leader of everyone who came until, his time. Okay, so now going back to the milk and the wine. So milk is something which is a pure thing that comes from the animal, and it is referred to as being something between filth and blood. That is where the milk comes from. And nothing substitutes food and drink like milk. Sometimes the kids are really tired and they want to sleep, and you say, okay, just have a glass of milk, right? You don't say have a glass of water or have a glass of juice, right? But you can comfortably say, okay, have a glass of milk, because you feel that, okay, that's filling enough. It's sort of like food and drink, but nothing else comes close to that. So it's a very wholesome, healthy, nourishing, nutritious thing to, incorporate into our life. And when you compare that with wine is something which comes from something really good and pure, but you corrupt it. You leave it, you let it rot. It's literally rotten drink, right? You have to let it rot. Unless you let it rot, you can't get wine. It's going to be grape juice. So when it rots and you have all this bacteria kicking around in this drink, it's obviously the byproducts of this bacteria produce this really awful smell and the stench, right? And it's an infested, stinking, disgusting drink, which people seem to really love and enjoy and make such a big deal about it. And you have wine tasting and all this. And I always look at them and I think, I wonder if this tastes like grape juice, the way they're enjoying it. But it tastes horrible. And if you have ever smelt it or come close to someone who has consumed alcohol, it's horrible. It can make you vomit. We used to see a lot of these people in the hospital because they would drink themselves sick on Saturday night, and then they end up in the hospital with these kidney basins in front of them because they're just vomiting because they're like gone on a binge, and it's sickening, and just being near them is so sickening. So there's nothing good about it. It makes you confused why any intelligent person who Allah has given aql would even drink this thing. What benefit is it really giving you, apart from the fact that you can just think that these people are so depressed and they are so miserable, because Allah says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً دَنْكَ, right? That whoever stays away or moves away from my remembrance, verily for him is a constricted life. So the only explanation I have is that because there is no remembrance of Allah, they have no iman, they have no Islam, they are so miserable and they are so depressed that they want to forget about all that, and the best way to do it is to just drink yourself sick so you can't even remember where you are and what you're doing. And I remember, once we were coming from England back to Riyadh, and they had overbooked the flight, so they said, sorry, but we're going to have to put you up in a hotel and then you can travel the next day because the flight is full. So we had to stay, and this was all happening like in the night. So by the time everything got sorted out and we caught our hopper bus and we went to the hotel, all the regular restaurants had shut, and the only thing that was open in that hotel was a pub. And so for the first time in our life, it was just me and my kids. And I asked them to give me a table as far away as possible from the bar. And so we had to sit in that bar because I had to feed the kids something. I literally had nothing else to, give them. So it was literally like, when you have no other option but to go to the pub and eat. And so I still remember, we're so far away from that bar where they're actually, there are people drinking on tables, but they're all far away from us. And a couple of my kids, they started vomiting. And I think it was just from the stench, because the pub, it smells of alcohol. Obviously, people are drinking there and whatever is going on. But I'm just trying to give you an example that if you are not accustomed to it, it is sickening and it will actually make you sick, And to think that people happily go and drink gallons and gallons of this stuff, it does not make any sense. Anyway, So the Prophet ﷺ, he chose the pure thing, and Jibreel alayhi salam said, this is for your ummah, i.e. your ummah will also be pure and your ummah will be upon the fitrah. So he made a good choice, and Jibreel alayhi salam, he commended him for it. And then he starts his ascent into the heavens. Now, Buraq is tied to the post. Okay, he does not need Buraq to go up. He needed Buraq for the journey, the Isra. Yeah, but going up, he is going up with Jibreel alayhi salam, and he starts his ascent. And before I go into that, maybe we'll start that next time, inshallah, so that we can start that from the beginning, and you can see, how he goes from heaven to heaven. But just a few basic things I want to tell you is, do you all understand the difference between Jannat and Samawat? Because a lot of people confuse the two. So, Jannat is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for the muttaqeen. Okay, that is your reward if you are good and you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has prepared Jannat for you. Samawat is something that Allah has created in this realm, and there is 7 of them, as He tells us, that He has created Sab'a Samawat, and He has created 7 earths, but we will not go into that. Let's concentrate on the Samawat. And these Samawat, they ascend in order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until you get to the highest, which is 7. It is said that the Jannat start from the 6th heaven and they extend into the 7th heaven. And some people have concluded that the Jannat are in the 7th heaven. Allah knows best. This is all ghaib, and these are all deductions that people have tried to extrapolate from different narrations. Allah knows best. But the point being that the Jannat is also in many levels. We don't know how many levels there is. Hundreds, thousands, Allah knows best. And that's why people will be in different levels of paradise. And the Samawat is something different, which is also in levels, but that is here. And what we have, that we have still not even been able to understand or overcome, is just the first heaven, which is the Sama ad-Dunya, which Allah says He has decorated with stars. And I don't know if, apart from the sun, we know the names of some of these stars, but these are so far away, and this Sama is so big and so inconquerable, we can't even think of what's second. And I don't know if you know the hadith which says that the first heaven compared to the second is like a ring in the desert. Then the second compared to the third is like a ring in the desert. Then the third compared to the fourth is like a ring in the desert. I mean, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, where you start thinking, you know what? My brain cannot comprehend the size of these things. It can't. I mean, can you imagine a ring in a desert? Have you been to a desert and dropped a ring there? I mean, that just blows your mind away. If this Sama, which we don't even know how big this galaxy is, and we don't know where it starts and where it ends and where we are and what's going on, and this is just a ring in the desert compared to the second one, and the second one is that compared to the third one, and then that hadith goes on until it gets to Allah's kursi and His arsh. I mean, you can't. What are we? And what do we think ourselves to be? We are nothing. We are like crumbs, if even that. We are nothing compared to the creation. And Allah says that, right? أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاء بَنَاهَا. Right? And I think our minds are bigger than our intelligence, unfortunately. But I mean, if you think about what you are, what your size is, who you are, and on top of all that, Allah says that if you remember me in a gathering, I will remember you in a better gathering. And Allah doesn't have to do that. If He didn't do that, we can't question Him and say, why didn't you remember me or mention my name, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so kind. He's so kind and so generous that He gives us this honor and this, this respect.
But you don't rain and sand in the desert, man. Here we're like this little grains of sand.
Honestly, we're like this. Even the grain sounds big if you think about all the size, right? We're like some nano. I think there's like some particle smaller than the atom. In my days, it was the atom. Now it's like some nano something, right? Yeah. So we are really nothing compared to that. But inshallah.
So the first samawat is what we see.
Yes, the first sama is
and
what
the
we
rest
see.
Is what he describes.
And then the rest is as he goes up. He doesn't really describe the levels, but he describes what happens in each level. And he has to knock the door to get through. So we know that there is a door which protects the second and the third and the fourth. And there are doorkeepers, and they don't open this door unless you have permission to move. Yeah, this is samawat, yeah. Yeah, we're not coming to Jannat right now.
So do you think this samawat is physical then? But
Yes.
discovered it.
Yes.
Jannah is the one that is
Yeah, that is also physical, but it's way out of our reach. Unseen, totally unseen. I mean, this sama is unseen. We've only like seen the moon and a few planets, and we think, oh yeah, we're really strong and we know everything. We don't know anything,
We have Google Sky now, though. So if you Google,
yeah.
we have Google Sky. So if you
I mean, even the satellites and the Hubble and this and that you keep sending, you just get more and more puzzled. It comes back and sends these pictures, and you think, oh wow, there's this. We have not even probably seen a quarter of our own, galaxy. So let alone, second and third is out of our reach. But we'll stop here, inshallah. Wa subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.